Hey, what's up guys? My name is Rage Mode and today we're gonna have a look at my song called Ashes. So, before we get into this video, I wanted to give a quick overview about what we're going to do today. So we're gonna start out by covering a bit of the writing part of this song because I feel like this is the most important aspect of this whole tune. Afterwards, we're going to have a look at the contract section, the orchestra section, how I did the programming, how I sort of brought the idea to life, which I wrote. And after this, we're going to have a look at the main synth and a bit of the sound design. And in the end, we're going to have a look at the drum bass and kicks and snares and stuff. Just a quick overview. So for this project, there is a bit of backstory needed because it originally started out, I believe, in 2022. And the original idea, I randomly watched again the Transformers movies. So I'm a huge fan of Steven Jablonsky and overall John Williams, who did the Star Wars movies. And so after watching a movie of, I think it was Transformers, I sort of sat down the next day and wrote just a progression, which I kind of felt was the same way as like in the movies I watched the day before. And like fast forward a few days, I worked on the idea, and back in the day, Cameron Crooked and Matthew sent me over the a cappella for Cientolo because I wanted to try stuff out for remix, whatever, bootleg live edit. And the idea with the Cientolo a cappella fitted so well together that I wrote the whole topic originally as a VIP edit for my set over the Cientolo vocals. And so the progression stayed the same for a really long time, and the boys even played out this version a couple of times. But in the end, I decided to move away from the Cientolo version and create sort of my own twist on it because it was nice, but I wasn't really happy with the drop I made back then, and I wasn't really... It was nice, but it was not the kind of feeling I wanted to bring over to the people who listen to the song. So fast forward a couple of months after writing nothing to the song, I kind of restructured it, threw out everything from the old stems and sort of took the core topic of this song and remade it into something new, which is the actual topic which made it to the final song. During the process, I even tried to get some vocals done. I tried a bunch of samples, a bunch of splice loops, but nothing really fitted the vibe which I wanted to do. So I reached out to a friend of mine. She is a singer and songwriter from Berlin, and she usually has nothing to do with electronic music, which is exactly why in the end she fitted so great onto this track. And we had a couple of sessions and just wrote the song onto the melody and onto the orchestrated piece. And yeah, again, then fast forward a couple of months with nothing changing on the orchestral side. I wrote the drops, I wrote the sections in between. It sort of took so long to get everything the way I wanted it to sound with so many ups and downs. Like the writing part was pretty much really, really messy and over such a long time. So yeah, that's sort of the backstory about how it came together. And now I would like to show you how I did the individual elements of the orchestra part. So, as you can see, we are back in Nuendo 12. In the meantime, I upgraded to Nuendo 14, but for this project, there are still some plugins in there which are not really working in the newer version and I scrapped nowadays. But yeah, Nuendo 12 is like the same structure I use for every song. We have the same sidechain routing. You can go back into my older videos and check this out because I explained it there a bit. But for the orchestral part, it's everything in this verse folder. And there is a folder for intro, the actual orchestra part, which is quite large, and then some brass leads, which I added on top, and I think even some horns at the bottom for the second 16. Quickly for how I write or how I make those orchestra things after I write it. So usually nowadays, all the ideas I have sort of come from a piano riff for a short time. I'm now very lucky that I have a sort of actually quite good digital piano in the studio, and so I most of the time write the chord progression and everything on there. It's not even hooked up to the PC, so I just jam it in and then kind of recreate it as a MIDI clip in Nuendo. But I have to say, I'm not really an expert on how the actual structure from the orchestra works. In my head, I have the idea of just creating something big and massive. So I'm not even thinking about, okay, it needs like 16 violins, 16 violas, a cello, and basses. It's just like, okay, it's not fat enough, so we have to add more. It's like I have to do something more, so add more instruments, add more stuff. In the end, I still go over and see how I can split everything up for processing. Because as you can see here, for example, there is a violin low, the violas, cello, bass. So I took the whole MIDI clip and just split it up through the different notes, and then kind of did a bit of twisting and fiddling around with each of the layers. But we can maybe have just a listen to the verse on its own. The first thing which usually comes into a project is this Moog, which is the Legend. It's usually I play around with just 2 notes and they sound like this. So it's really distorted and already giving such a fundamental vibe of what I wanted to do with the track. Additionally, I added a respace, faceplant, nothing crazy, just a simple old res to give the intro some low end. It even builds up here with the gain automation, just so it slowly comes up while the track progresses. And from this MIDI clip, from the Moog MIDI clip, I am building basically the whole orchestra. So starting on top, we have like one bus group where everything from the orchestral element comes together. And each of the individual elements, like this violin, the violin low, the violas, cello, bass, French horns, whatever, they go into this orchestral bus where they get processed separately. Going over the individual instruments on how I layer. So if we just solo the orchestra, it's like bass, cello, violins, violas, and everything together. And they sound like this. And already here, as I said before, it all comes from the MIDI from the Mini Moog. So the bass note stayed the same, the cello is just transposed a bit up, a few semitones. The violas play a different rhythm to give it some counterparts, but that's all without like really knowledge of what to do. I just simply try out what fits best, and even when I have like the basic structure down, I just shift some notes until it gets right. Also, I thought, it needs some more elements, because usually you have like your orchestra, which is like 16 violins, 16 violas, whatever cello. So I just started out adding stuff, and since in the reference, like Steve Jablonski or John Williams, they use a lot of French horns, I simply went in and took all the MIDIs up top from the orchestra and put it down on the French horn section. But even after that, I was like, hey, we need more. It's a drum and bass track. It has to have more energy. So I went down and even added some really low brass, some really heavy, I don't know, it's how the term is, but the players they really, so the dynamics and expression are turned up all the way here to play this section. Even afterwards, I was like, okay, we need one choir. Okay, nice. doesn't matter, it's still lacking energy. So I added a second one and then some woodwinds. And that's how, like, basically the my kind of approach to orchestral music is. If we just solo now everything together, it's really that. And the only thing which I added then is, like, again, French horns. They are playing sort of a lead melody. Yeah, same melody as the violins, for example, play on top. And the last thing which I added, basically only in the second 16, are again some more French horns. To give a different kind of counter melody into the second 16. After comparing it to the drop or working out the drop to its fullest, it still lacked some energy, and so I simply added a legend patch. Yeah, and the lower parts here are just some violins, horns for little small fill elements, so nothing too crazy. Once again, everything goes into the orchestra bus, and without the processing, let's quickly go over it, what I did there. So without processing, the whole orchestra section sounds like this. And then there's just some effects, reverb and whatever to make it come alive. And yeah, that's basically the whole writing and orchestra section. So I think to close this topic down, I'm not an expert on how to write orchestra music. As I said multiple times this video, I have references from movies, which are like also overdriven orchestral pieces to get out the last bit of emotion from the listener. And that's sort of the feeling which I wanted to get. So for me, it works pretty well, but most of the times I aim for like those big walls of sound. Especially I did it in Save Me. I did it in also Run. There are those big orchestral hits. So I would do it maybe differently if I just write some slight, like really dynamic orchestral pieces. But for the mixture between drum and bass and orchestra, this is just my go-to way of doing things. So if anybody is watching who has like real experiencing on writing orchestral music, please don't kill me. For me, it works, and it's just a gamble overall how to do stuff to get to the point where you like it. Well, so after the orchestra part, my ring light, which I placed on the camera, decided to run out of battery. So now it's sort of a different vibe for the rest of the video, but doesn't matter. Right now, I wanted to still give a quick overview about the main lead and how I made it. So starting right in, we have all the different folders which contain the different parts of the drop. So if I just play the low end, let's also quickly disable the sidechain. The drop on its own sounds like this. And now we're going to go over each element, especially the main and the first lead. So on top, we have a simple sine sub bass. It comes from Serum. Again, same sine wavetable where I can morph between the table to add the third harmonic. Down below, we have one harmonic add, which is also just a higher triangle wave, which plays different notes. This was basically done sort of at the end of the production to add more or to fill out the gaps in the frequency spectrum. Together, I can play you those two. You hear the upper harmonic slightly. Down below, there we have A and B part, and the A part is what I wanted to have a look at, because I think sound design-wise, it's pretty nice. So it's on its own. Because of performance reasons, I rendered it out to audio. It sounds like this. And then fades out, and then the B part comes in. So, after enabling everything and changing the battery in my camera real quick, I wanted to give a quick overview about how I came up with the sound. So, if we disable everything from the effects right here and just have a listen to the sound on its own, the original sound comes from two faceplant instances. Nothing too crazy, a saw wave with some noise on top, and then I added a second saw wave on top with a bit of unison and just some distortion. I also split up the layers of the chord, so sort of like before in the orchestral part, which I did with the Moog. So I have like the root note and then the upper harmonic on top. The lower one just plays the bass notes, and the upper one plays the main chord notes. So the basic sound is there, but it really comes alive with the post-processing. So starting off is one of my favorite plugins. It's from Kilohertz and it's called Snap Heap, where you can basically make your own chains. What I did there is just I took a convolution reverb, added it to the sound with a parallel chain. So some of the signal goes through unprocessed, and some of the signal gets run through the convolution reverb. Sounds like this. If we just disable the dry signal, to give like the upper kind of mid-range high frequencies a bit of a different texture, and together I just distorted it afterwards. After Snap Heap, again, some light distortion with the Kilohertz distortion tool, then some EQing to get rid of some frequencies just to balance out the sound a bit more. Afterwards, we have Serum FX, which adds basically texture and flavor to the sound. With the phase and the chorus, it slowly starts to get some movement and get some texture to really come alive. The next step was Volcano 3. This was kind of not so intentional because I rarely used the plugin and was like, hey, what does this do? And just slapped it on there and messed around with the preset. And in the end, it kind of sounded nicely, so I kept it there. Afterwards, SPL Vitalizer, for me, is a great stereo expansion tool to widen the sound a bit. Afterwards, Shaperbox, again, one of my favorite plugins on this world, because with the noise module they have right here, I can basically map just white noise onto a signal. It's hard to hear, but you notice that the sizzling on top gets a bit more brought out, and it's just modulating a black hole noise. They have a bunch of different noises available, and just scroll through and which fit best to the original sound. This is also a cool plugin. I don't use it too much, but I use it when browsing through sounds just to get a bit of fast processing onto a sound. Yeah, it just does some distortion. The format module is on, and the reamping module, just some slight bits, you know. After this one, we have the UAD Studio Tape. We sort of slowly get there with the sound. There are just a few more plugins, which is like an EQ. Roll off a bit of the top end. This was done after like the sound design session, because rather in the mixing stage, because I didn't know how to place the sound with the overheads and all the drums. So I rolled it off slightly and lowered everything afterwards to balance everything out. Then Snap Heap, which I use to cut away all the low frequencies on the main synth, and it follows every like the root node of the track with this note instance, and then this is linked to the filter. So every time the note moves, the filter moves. So I have always the same kind of cut wherever I want. And as I said before, this kind of processing with having two separate sounds for each note goes on basically throughout the whole track, because if we have a look at the B part, it's also rendered out, but you can see it's two faceplant instances again going into a bus and routed together, and then they are not as heavily processed as the first sound, but slightly different, but same thing. Just taking those two sounds, distorting it together, giving it some movement while small instances of distortion, basically same thing. And yeah, that's basically it when it comes to the main bass. So, for the people who follow me on my channel and have watched other breakdown videos, know that red means drums. So we're going to have a quick look now at the kick, snare and the drum processing. So the snare, as most of my snares, have like several different layers in it. It's like, if we go through every layer one by one, so it starts out with the fundamental. This one comes from face plant and just is a sine wave fundamental with noise layers on top. So we have like the distorted sine fundamental with the pitch envelope. Then we add noise on top just to create the tail. For the layering part, the first thing I most of the time add is a snare added noise. It also comes from face plant, and it's just like noise modulated a bit differently with convolution reverb and some saturation. And because I felt like that the snare didn't hit enough through the mix, afterwards I added a transient. Then we have two sample snares. On its own, they sound like this. And they're just basically here to give the whole snare a bit of texture, a bit of liveliness. When it comes to processing, I have a S1 imager on there because that was then in the mixing stage because I felt like the snare on its own was a bit too broad. Then again, an instance of snap heap where I added this is a really cool trick I do lately a lot. So I have a parallel bus, which is the clean signal of the snare and then a signal with a convolution reverb again. And what I did there is I took a noisier sample snare from their sample pack because I like the resonances and the texture of the snare. And I put it into this convolution reverb and it sounds like this. So you just have like the side informations and a bit of the flavor of the snare from like the sample snare. And together with the created snare, which I made, it sounds like this. So it slightly increases the actual resonances and the feeling of the snare. Afterwards, we have a Pro Q, boosting some frequencies and lowering some frequencies just while mixing. Then we have Spiff, which just again was added afterwards to hit a bit more through the mix and into the clipper. Then Delay for some automation, Simplon for some automation. It was like for low and high cut. And then we drive the snare into a L2, quite a lot. Then some gaining for automation. And afterwards, we hit the snare with a hard clipper. And yeah, going through to the kick. The kick is bounced in place and was originally made in Serum. Just a patch I made back in the days. Nowadays, I use Kick Ninja for that, but there I used it. And for performance reasons, again, I bounced out the whole track. And in the different sections, I have a bunch of different kicks. Here's, for example, one which is still active. It has like a different slope of how the low end progresses and everything. And for the last drop, there's even a whole different kick in there. On my drum bus, which is basically the last step where everything goes together, I have nothing too crazy. Basically, again, a Studer tape to sort of glue everything a bit together and distorting everything a bit together. Then some Saturn II, which is also nice to give the whole drum bus a bit more. It's, distortion is your friend when it comes to drums. It's like I rather do it like slightly and on two different plugins, but it just without, and we couldn't listen to the first drop with just the drums without and with the distortion. And those two plugins just bring a bit more flavor to it. Yeah, and at the end, it's just plain clipper to cut everything off. Without it, I think it would overshoot like by a lot. Not even, I did a proper gain staging. But yeah, that's basically my drum bus, and the drum bus goes out to the master. Nothing too crazy. There's basically nothing on it. just a snap heap, which is this automation on top. It just reduces the stereo image a bit before the drop, so the drop hits a bit harder. Then we just go into a clipper to take care of the first peaks, and afterwards a L2, which just brings everything to the loudness I want. And even the LUFS number, it's like usually in drum and bass, especially in neuro drum and bass or jump up or whatever, you have like even higher numbers. But for this kind of tune, I always aim for like -4, just because you also want to have a bit of dynamic left in the track. Because I feel like if I would cut off here the whole track, like even more, it would sound a bit shitty, so I left it there. Yeah, and that's it for the video. For me, the lead and the orchestral part were such an important aspect of this track that I simply covered only those two elements. If you have any questions regarding anything else in the track, let me know in the comments down below and I will answer your questions. I will also do in the future a bunch more tutorials for future songs where I go over different parts of the song, so if you wanted to see something else which I should cover in a future video, just let me know also down in the comments. And with that, I'm ending the video. Thank you for watching, guys, and see you in the next breakdown.